please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody, we're back again for another collab video today talking about the Edmonton Oilers, and I am very, very happy to have Raybro on. He's a subscriber to the channel. You guys probably have seen him in the comments during live streams. Certainly if you watch HTH, you've seen him. Really awesome to have him on today, and we're going to be talking, huge Oilers fan, so obviously we're going to be talking about the Oilers as they head into their play-in series against the Chicago Blackhawks. So Raybro, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I guess the first thing I want to ask before we look forward to the playoffs is back on the regular season. The Oilers this year had a pretty good year, certainly a lot better than they have the 2 years before, and solidly a playoff team. Obviously, McDavid and Draisaitl, just unreal. Just what were your impressions of the Oilers this year, and how do you think they did this season?
Honestly, compared to last season, their forward depth got way better. They added guys like Nygaard, Husk. You know what I mean? Kassian stepped up too. Jujhar Khaira. Neil had a surprisingly good run during the November-October season when he had he was the leading scorer for a couple of weeks. So that's pretty nice. Obviously at the deadline, Ken Holland traded for Tyler Ennis, and he traded away Sam Gagner for Athanasiou. Yeah. So that's a really good line to go into the playoffs too. They played really well during the first game against Anaheim. I believe they had combined 7 points that game. So
yeah, and definitely something I noticed as kind of an outsider is that Edmonton's defense this year was significantly better than it has been the past couple of years. And I think the emergence of Ethan Bear and Caleb Jones as legitimate NHL defensemen really helped that along. But this was a team that was pretty bad defensively a couple years ago. And now this year, they had a legitimate NHL defense.
Yes, exactly, too. Ethan Bear. I'm just going to say this right here. Ethan Bear is a steal. I don't know, he was at the 5th, 6th round in the 2015 draft. He played tremendously. He played he acted like he was in the NHL for a long time. Mm-hmm. He made some, rookie mistakes like always, but, he played tremendously well. We got guys like Green, who sadly is going to be opting out of the play-in series because of reasons. Mm-hmm. What else? Klefbom, to be honest, the stretch when Klefbom was out, the Oilers didn't look too well. But once Klefbom was back, they looked ready to play. They played wonderful.
Yep. All right. So now looking forward now to the playoffs coming up here. Obviously, they have their qualifying series against Chicago. And then, if they get beyond that, they go into the real deal playoffs. And what kind of matchups do you think that this team brings, as far as how they can look and how good they can be against some of these other teams in the West, and how deep ultimately can they go this year?
Yeah. So honestly, now since the end, before the end of the season, the deadline, Ken Holland made some really good trades. Legitimately now, people cannot, in my opinion, people cannot say that we have no forward depth at all. We got 2 good lines, especially the dynamic line of Draisaitl, Nooch, and Yamamoto.
Yep.
So we got really good 2 lines. So it's like a Crosby, Malkin type of situation. And we also have a good third line too with Khaira, Neil, and Jason too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kyler Yamamoto is someone I want to touch on because I remember watching him in rookie tournaments for the last couple of years now, and it always looked like everyone was waiting for him to really break, and everyone was like, he's almost there. He would always play really, really well in these rookie tournaments, but he could never really stick at the NHL level. And then this year he came up and he not only stuck at the NHL level, but he played really, really well. So So that's a young player that they had to wait on a little bit, but now he seems ready. Yamamoto, is he a legit top 6 forward for this team?
Honestly, I believe so. Ever since he got drafted, he got a lot of hype from, Shirelli.
Mhm.
A lot of people are saying that, he is better. I think he passed, Pugliarvi in the depth charts too.
Mhm.
And he really showed it too, like 26 points in 2017. That's under a point per game, which is really good too. Sadly, we rushed him a little, so he couldn't be like rookie of the year this year.
Yep.
Like he's gonna be in the color race, but we're glad that we have him now during the playoffs. So now teams cannot just watch over McDavid. Now they have to watch 2 lines too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And plus, what was it? Plus, they have video now. Like when they have video on McDavid, they have stuff to stop him, try to contain him. But with Yamamoto coming into the lineup, they have no clue how he plays at all.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And Zach Kassian is another guy that I personally am a huge fan of Kassian. And he had a big year this year offensively, which he always brings the physicality. He always hits. He's always willing to fight, and he's been that player his entire career. But there were some years he's good offensively, other years not so much. This was one of those years where he really had a good year offensively. And I think that just adds a whole other dimension to this Oilers team when you have a player like that who is also scoring goals.
Yeah, exactly, too. He had, career high in points, too. And there's actually quite, a funny stat saying that in all the games that, Kassian didn't play with McDavid, he had actually better points per game than he did with McDavid, which was really surprising, too, right? Since he played with McDavid for most of the time. But, he's kind of like that great, grit player who can score some goals, too, make some hits, stick up for the teammates. And he shows a lot of heart and passion for the game. Especially the memories I have was the 2017 playoffs.
Yep.
When there were starts where, when he scored that goal, he was just very
oh yeah,
he was the best game he played.
Yep. So now something I want to talk about, I always do in these videos, are X Factor players. Like we know that McDavid and Draisaitl are the superstars of this team, but who are some other players maybe that people don't know as much about who really play a huge role for the Oilers and will really need to step up if this team is going to make a deep run into the playoffs?
Honestly, I would like to say Nooch too. People often undervalue Nooch because he's, the first overall pick and, Kucherov got drafted later than all that stuff. But he's a really good player. He played this year, he put up 70 points. He was on pace for 75,
Wow.
which is pretty good on a second, maybe he's a first, second liner too.
Yep.
But the main guy that could really step up, Jujhar Khaira. A good third liner. He could score, he can hit, he can play. He's a perfect third liner.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Khaira as well. He brings that physicality and also some offensive ability to that lineup, and very, very solid third liner for sure. Last thing I haven't touched on yet is goaltending. We've got Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith. They played pretty even amount of games this year. Both of them, goaltending wasn't an overly big issue for this team. I think they both played pretty well. Who do you think's gonna start come playoff time, and whose team is this in net?
Honestly, Dave Tippett's probably gonna put on Smith first. He has that consistency. He played really well in last year's playoffs. Yep. He wasn't the reason why Calgary lost to Avs, honestly.
Not at all.
And he great consistency. He's a third defenseman too with his puck handling too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can really get that consistency, he can step it up. The Oilers can win over Chicago too.
Yep.
And plus, we have an advantage too over Chicago if Corey Crawford doesn't play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Crawford right now a question mark for the Blackhawks. All right, one final thing before we go. Prediction time. How far do you think the Oilers are going to go this year?
Oh, that's a tough one. honestly, realistically, I can see them going to at least the second round of conference.
Yep.
At most, conference round. But it's going to be tough, though, because you have, Chicago, like, surprisingly, battling out and, making it in.
Yep.
And you got other, like, maybe Vegas. I'm not too sure about the reseeding. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup, too.
Yeah, for sure. No matter who they play, it's going to be – that's the other thing. Predictions are tough this year because it's not a bracket. It's all reseeded, so we don't know what any of the matchups are going to be. So I guess I'll add one last question at the end here. Out of the teams that the Oilers could play in the second round, which are the top 4 teams in the West, which one would you not want to play the most, and which one do you want to play the most?
For sure, not want to play the most has to be either Dallas or, Avs. These guys are really good offensively and defensively too. The team I want to verse the most, obviously, the Calgary, Battle of Alberta.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna be tough. But I think Vegas too. There's some soft spot in Vegas, so it's probably gonna be an easier matchup, but I'm not going to say it's like, a full-out, win.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. All right, man. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. That about does it for our time today. Really appreciate having you on the channel and giving some insight for the Oilers here. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.